I'm Tony, and today we're going to foundation paper piece a pill block. I love this little block so much. It's reminiscent of old video games, but it's also a great block for like a medical quilt or a blanket or wall hanging or anything else. It's just a nice little pill, and you can change the colors of the pill if you want. So let's do some foundation paper piecing. So the very first step you want to do is print out the very last page of the pattern. This is page number 8 of the pattern. You can print it on regular printer paper, or you can print it on special foundation paper piece paper. I have a link down below that takes you directly to this paper if you would prefer to use that. The foundation paper piece paper is actually a little thinner, lighter, and easier to remove once it's time to remove the papers. So keep that in mind. So once you have this printed, it's time to measure it. This block right here, this little 1-inch block, measure that. It should be exactly 1 inch all the way around. If it's not, then check your printer settings. In your instructions, it actually walks you through how to make sure that your printer settings are correct so that you do get that. And this at 1 inch will give you a 6.5 inch block, which will be a 6-inch finished block. So keep that in mind. So this is a 6-inch finished block. So you're cutting this at 6.5 because of the seam allowances. All right, let's say if you want to resize this. Let's say if instead of a 6-inch block, you would like a 3-inch block. Well, in that case, reduce this by 50%. If you want a 12-inch block, increase it by 200%. So depending upon how big you want your block, that is how big the percent that you should make this right here. So it's easy to resize that. If you want to resize this and you're having problems figuring out the math, then go ahead and just put a comment down below, and I'd be more than happy to do the math for you. So once you've got that printed out, then we need to make sure that we print out page number 2, because page number 2 has all of our colors in here. Now, I am doing this one today a little bit differently than my original. My original, I used a purple background, and that's the color that I have in the instructions. Today, I figured I'll go with the classic black. So I'm rewriting, instead of purple, it is black. Now remember, if you need to pick up this pattern, it is just $2. It's down below the link to the actual pattern. And if you've already picked up the pattern, thank you. I appreciate you. And we're going to show you how to make this. All right, so we've got our fabric, we've got our pattern, we've got this list, and I've also printed out the reverse. So I printed out my color chart so I can see. Now remember, this is reversed. So see how this one says A1 and this one says A2? It's reversed because this is technically like that. So let's get all of our fabric cut out first off before I get started with you. Oh, and for those of you new to foundation paper piecing, I would consider this a level 1. This is an easy one. There's no pieces to sew together. It's all one single block that you're just creating. So it's actually pretty easy. So let's get our fabric cut. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to list this right here. And I'm just going to cut all my pieces. And as I cut them, I'm going to check mark them all the way down. Once all of my fabric pieces are cut, I'm going to speed up the video. And once the fabric pieces are cut, I'll come back and we'll start assembling. Alright, so now let's start assembling. Now, whenever you are using a single sheet of paper like this to create a block, you have two options. You can just leave it like this, completely on this sheet of paper, or you can cut around to make it easier. So when you cut around, make sure you use paper scissors. Some people are like, it's fine the way it is. And as long as you cover those lines, it is perfectly okay. but it is a little easier to cut it out. Now, whenever you're cutting, again, for all foundation paper piecing, never cut along those lines. Always, always, always cut just outside the lines, because those lines are your cut lines. That is what you're going to rotary cut at the end to line everything up. All right, so let's start with our A number 1. Now, A1 is our red piece. Now, whenever we put our pieces together, we always want to put wrong side to wrong side. Now, when you're looking at fabric, this is the right side, this is the wrong side. The wrong side is the side that doesn't have the color or design that you want. Batiks do not have a wrong side because of how they are dyed. So you just pick the side that you like the best for batiks. Okay? So we're going to take this, and I like to use a little bit of water-soluble glue in order to hold it in place. So I'm just going to put some water-soluble glue on my block, and then I'm going to use wrong side to wrong side, and I'm just going to center it. So take your fabric and center it on there just like that. Then we want to fold. The instructions say to fold between A1 and A2 so that the fabric is showing. Okay, so that's how you do this. Take your A1 and A2 so you can see the fabric here, because we want to trim this fabric away. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to trim the fabric 1/4 inch from the edge, just like that. And right there is our seam allowance. Okay, so let's open this back up again. And now we want to take our A2 piece, which is the blue, lay it down, and we're going to pin this in place. Now, you can also glue this in place. If you would like to glue it in place, just put a bit of glue right here along this red part, and then lay your blue piece down. So you can water-soluble glue that just on the very, very edge, or you can use pins. Either way, whatever you're more comfortable with. Then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to sew this along this line right here on the A1, A2 line. So let me show you the sewing machine. Now, when you're using your sewing machine, make sure you change your stitch length to 1.6. This is in the instructions, but it's also very, very important, because you want to make sure that your stitch length is super small to really perforate that paper to make sure it's easier to take out. So a 1.6 stitch length. If you're not sure how to adjust your stitch length or what that means, I have a video all about it. I've got it linked down below. All right, so when we're sewing this, we want to start 1/4 inch, at least 1/4 inch away from where we're sewing, and go all the way down to at least 1/4 inch after. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me find my petal, and we're just going to sew all the way down. Now you notice how I'm sewing this on the right side of the paper. It's easy to see what we're doing. All right, so we're going to take this away. Let's trim our thread, and we'll take it back over to the mat, and I will show you how to iron it. When ironing this, we always want to iron the seams like this first. This locks those seams in, and it really gets you a good press. Then we want to iron towards the fabric that we just added. So remember, the red was A1, the blue is A2. So we want to iron this towards the blue. And that's it. Now you notice how your paper may get a little wrinkly. That is perfectly okay. That's because I'm using steam in my iron. Your paper can become a little wrinkly. It's not going to hurt it at all. Don't have to worry about that. All right, so let's take a look at A3. Now, my A3, 4, 5, and 6, the numbers are out here. That's just because I didn't want to make them so tiny that to fit up in there and you couldn't read anything. but it is these little tiny triangles here. So let's take a look at 3. So 3 is over here. So let's fold 3 over. And we're going to trim a 1/4 inch from the end. Now, here's the trick. You see this big, huge, wide thing? Well, our A3 is a little 1 inch by 1 inch piece. It completely depends if it's correct where you put this. So what you want to do is look on the other side and see where the actual triangle is. Okay? So if it's easy, you can even kind of fold this down a little bit and hold it up to a light source so you can see through it. So you see how you can see through it? It's right here, that triangle. So you want to look through and line it up to make sure that whenever you fold this over, you're going to completely cover that one. So you see how I'm looking on both sides? Okay, I need to go to the left a little bit. And then if I fold this over towards A3, oh, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. So you see how I'm just kind of like eyeballing it to make sure it's covering it? And right there is where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and let's pin this one. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Instead of just sewing and ironing this one, let's see if I can add any more on, just for the same thing. Well, it looks like this one, A4, is going to be a little bit too close to A3. So you know what? I'm going to come over here and do A5. So let's fold over A5. And what that does, it allows me to save some time using my sewing machine and iron, because I'm doing 2 corners at the same time whenever I'm sewing them. All right, let's trim that. Great. And we're going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to take my little 1 inch by 1 inch piece. Now remember, it's right side to right side. Okay, so I'm going to put it there. I think it's there. Yeah, that looks good. And folding this over and holding it so I can do an eyeball. No, I am off. It's more this way. I was looking at the A9, not the A5 in my initial eyeballing. Okay, and that's the trick for a lot of these, is making sure you're placing it so that whenever you do iron it, it's going to completely cover the piece you want to completely cover. Okay, so then now I'm going to just quickly double check. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to look to see where my pins are. See how my pins are right there? So I know that they're good. So let's iron this. I'm sorry, let's sew this, and then I'll come back and iron. I can't even speak. I've shown you how to sew and iron it, so let's sew and iron it. I'm going to speed the camera up a little bit, and after we sew and iron these two, we'll come back and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so we have our 3 and our 5 done. Beautiful. So now I'm going to do the same thing to 6 and 4. So same exact thing we just did to 3 and 5, we're going to do to 6 and 4. So we're just going to take our 4 and fold it back and trim a 1/4 inch from the folded paper. Oops. It would help if I had it lined up correctly. And you know what? I'm just going to do the same thing before I line that up. I'm just going to fold this number 6, just like that. And trim that. There we are. It's starting to take shape. So then I'm taking my 1 inch, and I showed you how we eyeballed that. So at this point, I'm just going to speed up the camera again while I finish up my 4 and my 6, and then I'm going to sew them, iron them, come back, and we'll do the next step. All right, so we have our 3, 4, 5, and 6 done. So now let's do our 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we're going to do this the same way we just did these 4 little ones. However, whenever we go to fold these, we're going to have a little bit of a trouble because we have sewn into it. So how you fix it is this. Hold on to the paper, hold on to the stitches. So you see how I'm bringing my thumb down and I'm kind of holding on to that thread, and then gently pull the paper away from those stitches, just like that. You see how it's pulled away from those stitches? Once you do that, then you can go ahead and fold this over and then trim it on the end, just like that. And then now we can place this one. So this is our A7 block. Now this one's a lot easier because there's no like finagling and juggling and figuring that out. You just line it up directly with that line. So this one is a lot more easier to place. It's not as hard as that A3, 4, 5, and 6 block was. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So this is, I'm going to do the A9 one. So let's see, it's over here. So I'm holding on to the thread and to the fabric and gently, very gently pulling away that paper so that I can go ahead and fold this paper along the line. And we're going to trim it 1/4 inch from the end. Open this back up again. We're going to take our fabric and lay it down. Whoops. This one's a lot farther out, right? Yes, okay. So I'm lining it up with this side where the edge of my black is because this blue goes farther out than the red did. So it doesn't quite perfectly line up, but that's okay. I'm just going to line it up just like that. So let's go sew it. We'll iron it, come back, show you what it looks like, and do the other two. All right, let's do the other side. So same exact thing for 8 and for 10. So you're holding the fabric as you pull away the paper. Make sure you're holding those thread seams because you do not want the seams to come undone. Okay, and then we're going to fold it just like that. So it's a rinse and repeat. So go ahead and do the 8 and the 10. I'm going to speed the video up. We're going to sew them. And then we are going to come back. Oh no, I'm going to sew them, iron them, and then we'll come back, and then we'll do 11 and 12. All right, let's do 11 and 12. Now, 11 and 12 are the same exact thing with folding it back with all of the seams. However, you have a lot of seams. So, whenever you're folding it back, this may happen. You may get rips in there. And that is totally fine. You don't have to worry about that. So what I normally do is I pull the paper away for the small little areas, just like if I was just taking this paper out if it's finished. So just this area right there. There we are. And then I take my tweezers and I get in there and I pop this piece up. So you see how I've basically removed the stubborn part, and oops, there's another stubborn part over here. Let me go ahead and just get that out. There we are, the two sides. And then I get in here and I pop this up and fold this over. So we're going to fold this over right there, and then I'm going to get in here and fold that over. And then we're going to do our trimming. So if you tear the paper, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. You can work around it. Just like that. Let's do the same thing to this side. So I'm going to gently pull. Oh! Uh-oh. Maybe. Am I getting this side? Any issues? Yeah! Look at that. I didn't have to tear off any paper for that side. Okay, so let's fold this one. And trim it. Okay. And then now for 11 and 12, we are taking our pieces. Now, this is the first time we have a piece that's not an exact square on this point. And we're going to take the 2.5-inch side and line it up, and we're going to center it. So remember what I said about watching where you're going? So you see this A11, you can see through the paper, especially if you're using foundation paper piecing paper. If you're even using regular paper, you may have to use a light source like a window, a light box, something like that to see through it. So fold it away and just make sure that you hit this line that's at the end, and I do. So we're going to center this up, center it between everything, and I'm pinning it in place. Remember, you can also glue it in place. Water-soluble glue, that's what the words I was looking for. You can also use water-soluble glue and glue it in place. So let me go ahead and line that one up, pin it, and we're going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. Let's sew this, and then I'm going to iron it. We'll come back and do the last two pieces. Last but not least, let's do our A13 and 14. So just like I did with the 11 and 12, you have a whole bunch of lines right here that I have to be careful whenever folding this over. So I'm going to hold the fabric and the thread, and I'm going to move slowly and try not to pull any seams out and try not to rip my paper. Okay, and then over this side. And again, if you do rip the paper, it's okay. Just grab your tweezers and then pull it up and give it a nice helping hand. There we are. Hey, I did that one pretty well. Oops. Let's fold these under. There we are. Now, you see how this bit has popped out a little bit? I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to leave it alone. Because remember, I'm coming out a 1/4 inch, which is beyond what that paper is sticking out on. And look at that nice smooth edge. Look at that pretty nice smooth edge. So let's take our what is this, 11? 13. Oh, excuse me. Let's take our A13 piece, lay it down, and I'm going to pin this in place. Now, with our A13 and our A14, unfortunately, I'm not able to do them both at the same time. Or else, well, actually, I may, you know what? Let's see if I can do them both at the same time. Let's try to save some time. There we are. And then our last bit here. Oh, there's a seam over here. Put a pin in there. Great. Okay, so let's see if I can't do this side now. All right, so holding the fabric and pulling back the paper. And this really is something that is something the more you do of, the better you're going to get at it. Is getting that paper out. Great. Now, what I've done is I've taken this and I folded it back so it's not in my way. If you decide to do both sides at the same time, please do that, or else you're going to cut that fabric away, and then you got to recut new fabric and redo that side again. So don't let this fabric here anywhere near this edge here. All right. So now let's lay this down. Ooh, look, I can do this at the same time. All right, so I've got this, and let's pin this one. Now, when I go to the sewing machine, I'm not going to speed it up because I want to make sure that I show you exactly how we're going to be sewing these because of how I've done it by doing both at the same time. And as you see, I have folded the fabric over. So let's go do that. Let's go sew this and I'll show you how to sew it. All right, let's do this side first because this is the open side that we can see. So here is our A14. All right, so we've got that right there. So I'm going to sew that edge first. Now, let me find my scrap fabric. Here it is. Because I want to make sure that I include my scrap fabric in there so that I have a leader and an ender. So I've got my fabric. And then now I'm going to use that fabric to move along here so I can just start from the edge. So let's sew this all the way down. Now after I finish sewing this side, I'm going to take that scrap fabric for the leader ender and put it in here. There we are. And now, don't sew over your pins. It's a horrible habit that I have. You shouldn't do it. Don't sew over your pins. So now, after I've done that, we can fold this one back all the way and then take this fabric here and open this fabric back up again so that now I see this side. And then I'm going to take this and flip this over, and we're going to sew this line between all these numbers and A13. So 2 things we're doing for this. We're doing the scrap fabric for chain piecing for the leaders and enders. Then we're also making folds so that I can see both ends in order to be efficient and not spend as much time going back and forth from the sewing machine to the mat. And that's it for sewing. Now, when ironing it like this, we don't just want to put our iron on there because we don't want to have it iron this. So we want to iron just this seam right here and then just this seam right here before we start to iron it out. Now remember, we're ironing away from the center. So I'm moving slowly until, there we are, we can get it all the way out. Now my edges are a little bit longer because I took a 4-inch strip and I didn't feel like cutting it down. And that's fine, because I was going to cut it down anyways at this point, right? Alright, so we have our block. So, let's trim our block. So we're going to flip this over. We're going to use our edges, and now we're going to trim along this outside line. Do not, if you use a rotary cutter, do not use the same rotary cutter you use for fabric. I have a second rotary cutter that I use for paper. That's the rotary cutter you want to use because you are cutting through paper as well as fabric. So don't dull your fabric rotary cutter by cutting through paper. like that. Oops, oops, oops. There we go. Okay. And then this side. Beautiful. Now, our block is done. Now comes the fun part. Let's take our paper out. I always start from the edges because you can just fold this whole thing back again and then just rip it away. Now, as you rip it away, the whole paper may not come with it. It may leave little jagged edges like that. That's why you have a good pair of tweezers. These are my favorite tweezers. They are the Famore tweezers, number 507. I adore these tweezers because they get in there. They have the angled edge and they're sharp. So you can get in there and get almost any piece of paper out of there. So that is what you're doing at this point. I also like the sharp edge because then I can get in and get underneath. See, the paper's here. See how I was able to get underneath that right there? So they are amazing scissors. Amazing tweezers. Man, words are hard today. All right, so at this point, let's go ahead and get all the paper out. I'm going to speed the video up as I work on my paper, and we'll come back and take a look at the blocks. And there's our blocks. We have our pill blocks done. Now, let's say if you're making a quilt and you want multiple blocks and you don't want them all the same direction. Well, now you have a vertical block, and now you have a horizontal block, and a vertical block, and a horizontal block, and a vertical block, and a horizontal. But do you want a diagonal block? Oh, well, I guess you're going to have to pick up the other pattern I have for the diagonal pill. And that's the pill block. It's as easy as that. I'm so happy. I think I like the black background better than the purple background. I don't know. What do you guys think? We should play with other colors, too. Make a whole quilt of pill blocks, which is all different colors and things. That would be really interesting. So, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this helped you make a pill block. A pill foundation paper piecing block. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, where I also stream live with YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, although I never really do anything on Pinterest. And don't forget about my Facebook group, the Quite Nerdy Quilters, where we have a lot of fun and show off quilts. And that's where I tell everyone all of my new things first. So, thank you.